Hello and welcome to a new series. It's going to be a compilation of videos for you to watch of Cooking with Chef Guy. And what I'm going to do is take you through a series of recipes, family recipes you can do at home. Now these are going to be based on a lot of the work you've done with me in the classroom, but it'd really be great if you could just do some of this at home and have a practice. So the meal we're going to do today is one you have done before, so we're basing this on previous work, and it's a spaghetti bolognese, an Italian dish, and it's a really great one to do. I think you should all be able to do a spaghetti bolognese when you leave here, and if you can do a spaghetti bolognese, then that would take you on to doing a chili con carne a little bit later on, because they are very similar. But as you know, the first things we do before we do any cooking is to, yes, that's right, wash our hands. So you know, you need to be doing that before we start. I'm also going to take you now through just some of the equipment you'll need today. This has been listed as well on the sheets that you've actually got there. So you will need, what's this called? Yeah, I hope you got it right. It's a colander. We need that to drain our pasta off a little bit later. This is it's a wok. We use woks in school a lot. I prefer them to frying pans because we don't tend to get stuff over the cooker tops. They're very versatile because they're quite deep. So use a wok if you have, but if you haven't got a wok, by all means use a deep frying pan. Chopping board. We've got different coloured coded ones at school. You may not have those at home, but just make sure the board's clean each time you use it. Chef's knife. Yep, you've used those before. Most of you know knife skills with the bridge and claw technique. I've taught you those as well. I'm going to show you how to, just remind you how to do an onion with that a little bit later on. What's that? Yep, that's a grater. Okay, we're going to use that on our Parmesan cheese. We're going to put some on the top at the end. Beef mince. Tomatoes. You should know this one. What's that? Very similar to that, isn't it? That is tomato. That's right, tomato puree. And you've got garlic. Okay, well done. And the onion. You can get garlic in this form as a bulb, but you will have to take the ends off that and crush that as I've shown you. I'll probably show that later on as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to start the cooking process. So what I'm going to do now is just take you through the steps of dicing an onion. Once you've diced 20 or 30 onions, it will stick with you for the rest of your life, and actually it will be a great help in your cookery. So there's the onion. We need to cut it in half first so we can take the skin off. And if you look at an onion, you've got the root there, and you've got, that was the grain part of the onion where the stem came up, the top there. And you cut it from the root to the top, down there halfway through. You don't cut it across the fat bit. So if I put that on my board, make a bridge. There's the bridge. The knife will go under the bridge. Cut it in half. So we've now got two halves of an onion. The root's there, and we're going to leave that tiny bit of root on to keep the onion together because we don't want it falling apart. But in order to peel it easily out, we need to take the top off there. So I'm just going to make a claw now. I'll just rest it on top of the onion and take the top off of that. And I've always encouraged you to keep your work area tidy. Okay, very important because you don't want bits of this getting into your diced onion. And if you go to catering college, they will certainly expect you to have a very tidy work area and organised work in front of you. So I'm going to put these bits in there. I'm going to get the onion and I'm going to peel it. Put the peelings into the pot. That's one half done. gets stuck, just scrape it with the knife a little bit to get it off. And that's the second half done. I'll just trim that bit off there. So we've now got our two halves of the onion. What you do now is you turn the onion sideways and you just put your fingers on the top, and we're going to do horizontal slice going that way through the onion, but we're not going to go all the way through. Don't want the onion to fall apart. We want it just to be held together by a little bit of root there. So fingers on the top, and I'm going to go through, and you want to stop just about there. If you want to make a finer dice, do another one. Once again, go through, stop about there. So we've done our horizontal slices. We're now going to do some vertical ones, and all you do is you make claw again. Sorry, you make your bridge, and you put your bridge there, and you do some downward slices. Don't go right to the end, because your onion will fall apart if you do. So let's have a think what we've done. We've done some horizontal ones to about there, and if we've made our bridge and we've done some vertical ones there going down. All you've got to do now is make your little claw. I used to say the claw of Freddy, didn't I? But you probably won't remember that because you're too young. But anyway, claw of Wolverine maybe. There we are. So claw on the top and just go down. Can you see the little diced onions coming off there? Nice fine dice. Move your fingers back as you do it, otherwise you're going to cut them. You get to the end bit, just chop it off there, and if you want to, you can just chop it up like this as well, using that technique. And you use a knife as a scraper if you want to keep your board tidy, and you've got your nice diced onion there. I'm going to show you how to deal with the garlic now. So once again, we need to take the skin off that. So put it flat on your board. If you just take that little top bit off, and if you get your flat knife and just put it on the top, don't do it like that because you'll cut your hand. So it should be flat, and just press a little bit, and you hit a little crack there, and then with the knife it should peel off. There we are. It's nicely peeled, and once again, don't make the head chef angry, put it in the pot, keep it nice and tidy. And you've used these with me before, what are they called? That's right, it's a garlic crusher or a garlic press. So all we got to do is put the peeled garlic in there, and this is where I hope you've had some Weetabix for breakfast, or I shouldn't use brand name, really should I? You've got to squeeze hard, and you see it coming out of there, the little holes. Just get your knife, scrape it off, and make a little pile of garlic. So we're almost ready to go. We've got our diced onion, we've got our crushed garlic. Okay, so we've got our ingredients prepped up, and now we need to start the cooking process. So I've got a little bit of olive oil here, and I'm just going to put a little bit into my wok. You don't need an awful lot. I don't know whether you can see that, but there's some olive oil gone in there. And you'll need to turn your hob on. These are the hobs at the top. You're used to using the ones at school, so your parents or carers might need to just help you get used to your type of cooker you've got. So I should turn this one on here. There we are. Don't have it too high. You know, sometimes I notice that when I'm cooking with you, you whack the flame up and you think it's going to be, really good. It's you end up burning things. So just have it not too high, put it on there. Now the other thing is you've got to just wait for a bit, don't be too impatient because you want to get the oil hot before you put things into it. So just give it a minute or two, okay? And we're going to put our onions, our diced onions in first, and we're just going to cook those maybe for 5 or 6 minutes just to soften. We don't want to colour them, okay? We just want to soften them, a bit. It's called sweating, so we're going to sweat the onions in there for about 5 or 6 minutes until you see them. They go soft and shiny. So in they go. I just lift the board up like that, and in they go. You can just hear them start to sizzle a little bit now. So
5 minutes later.
So our onions now are pretty soft. I don't, if I keep cooking they're going to burn, so I need to add the meat at this stage, and there's some nice ground beef there. In that goes. And we're going to cook that until the meat goes sort of brown, goes sort of grey brown really. So I reckon, how long will that take? I reckon about another 10 minutes, or probably less actually, 7 or 8. There we are. So.
A few minutes later.
Okay, so the meat has gone brown, the onions are nice and soft. I'm now going to put the garlic in. The reason I didn't put the garlic in right at the start with the onions is it's very fine and it can burn before the onions are soft, and burnt garlic can be quite acrid, it can be quite sort of bitter, so you need to just give it a couple of minutes cooking. So in it goes, and I'll just give that a couple of minutes just to mix in, cook up.
2 very boring minutes later.
Okay, so the garlic's done, and if I keep frying it's going to burn, so we need to add some liquids now. So what I've got here is some tomatoes, a tin of tomatoes. So I'm just going to put some tomatoes in there. For 2 of you, half a tin. For 4 of you, I'd maybe put in a whole tin. Okay. I'm going to also add a little stock cube in a minute. We need to add some water to that. If your parents at home, and they've got the inkling too, they could put a glass of red wine in. I'm just going to put some water in there, and I'm going to use a stock cube. And because I've only done this for 2, I'm going to just put half a stock cube in. You have to be careful with stock cubes because they can be very, very salty. You can buy low salt ones, and if you start chucking salt in as well as a stock cube, things can be over salty. So wait till the end to put your salt in to try it. So the stock cube's going in. I've put the tomatoes in there. I'm also going to put a little bit of this, which is tomato puree in. It comes in a tube like that from the supermarket. Okay, so I'm just going to put a couple of teaspoons of tomato puree in. Thanks to the cameraman, Rob, the wonderful cameraman Rob. In we go. 1, 2. And we'll mix that round. And the other thing I'm going to put in is a dash of this, which is Worcestershire sauce. So just a couple of splashes of that in there, and that's quite salty as well. So always, add the salt I would towards the end to taste. Okay, so that's bubbling away nicely. You can see the steam coming off it. That's water. So what's happening is this sauce, the Bolognese sauce, is what we call reducing, because the water's coming out. You're taking water out of it. The sauce is getting thicker. So that's good. That's a good sign. We need to add a few other things to it to improve flavours, and you know what we add. What can we add to improve the flavours of our food? Yep, we can add herbs, or you can add spices. I've got some herbs here today to add. These are mixed herbs. Okay, and if you remember how to add herbs, you never do that. Never tip the pot in, because if you have an accident, you ruin all your food. And you just sprinkle a few in. Interesting. I've been teaching you about some different types of herbs. I haven't got any thyme here. Thyme I've shown you before with the tiny leaves. Anyone remember what that's called? It's got the Christmas tree, like needles on it. Can you remember what that's called? It's a girl's name. Yeah, it's rosemary, okay? So I might put a little bit of rosemary in that. Be fine in there. It goes really well with lamb and some oily fish as well. And I might just put a pinch of black pepper in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn that right down now. It's simmering. You want tiny bubbles coming up, and that sauce is going to get thicker. Very important not to let it dry out completely, because it will catch at the bottom and burn, so you need to stir it. If it does start to dry, you add a tiny bit of water to it. Just keep it moist. So I'm going to leave that, just stirring it for maybe another 10 minutes. Okay.
A few minutes later.
So we're going to cook some pasta while the meat's cooking off. The thing about pasta, you have to cook it in lots of boiling water. It likes space in between the strands of pasta, and it likes the water to be hot. If you put it into cold water that's not boiling, a lot of the starch comes out and it looks milky and it's not very nice. So if you have a look at this now, you can see that is not boiling. at the moment because there are only tiny little bubbles to come up. Boiling is when you see big bubbles breaking the surface and coming to the surface, and that is when you know it's time for your pasta.
5 minutes later.
Okay, so this has been cooking for about 10-12 minutes, reducing. Can you see how it's got a nice thick colour? A lot of the water's gone from it, so that is, I think, is just about right. And I'm going to turn that off now. So we've added all our flavourings, all our herbs to it, and I'm going to turn that off, and we're just going to wait for the pasta to finish. So I hope you can see the pan, and we have got big bubbles coming up, boiling away there. That's how it should be when we add the pasta. So I'm just going to put the pasta in. The other thing to be mindful of is that you will need to push the pasta down. I know a few of my students that put the pasta in there and left it, and the heat comes up the side of the pan and burns it. So it starts to go soft. Just get a spoon, just push it, ease it into that pan. Down like that. It's going in there now. So the pasta's been gently eased into the pan now and it's cooking away. Keep an eye on it, leave it. Probably going to take about 8, 9, 10 minutes to do. Check it occasionally. What you can do is just get a fork and get back and try it. Some people like their pasta, which is called al dente, which is just a slight bite to it. I like it slightly on the softer side than that, but I know a lot of people don't. But your pasta, cook it how you want.
A few minutes later.
Okay, so let's just check if the pasta's done. So get yourself a fork, put a bit of pasta, put it on a board or a plate and just cut a little bit of it and try it. Well, that's soft enough for me. Some people might like it a bit softer, some might like it a bit harder, so cook it as you want. So we need to drain the water off now. So there are a couple of things you have to be mindful of. One, there's no one in the way of the sink, because you're going to be carrying a pan of boiling water over to a sink, moving it across a kitchen, so make sure there's no one there. Make sure you have the things you need ready. So that is that's a colander. That can go over there. I'm going to turn the cooker off and to lift my pan. The other thing is as well, if you're not really that strong or you've got a problem with your hand, check that you can actually lift the pan, because if it's full of water and pasta you might find that struggle. That's fine with me, but there have been some big pans when I worked in kitchens before which are really heavy and people should check they can lift them. So that's fine for me. I can lift it over. I go over to the sink and I just tip the water in there slowly and give it a little bit of a shake and put it back in. So we're ready to plate up. Now this is questionable and it causes debate among chefs, but I trust my friend Rob, who's got Italian heritage, and he says that we should mix the sauce with the pasta, mix it all around and put it on the plate. That way that all of the spaghetti gets covered in the pasta. I know some people like to put the spaghetti on the plate, put the sauce on the top. It's up to you, but I'm going to do it the way I was told to do it by an Italian, so here we go. So I turn that off, get my sauce, mix it in, don't waste any.
A few moments later.
Okay, so it's mixed up now. I'm just going to plate it up and show you how it should look. How I think it should look. So we've got a clean plate, and I've warmed that plate on a very low oven, so it's nice and warm. If you put hot food onto a cold plate, it will go cold very quickly, and I do like my food quite warm. So this will need to do 2. Okay, so the plate's warm, we've got the food on there. To make it look attractive, you can see that I spilt some of the sauce gone on the side. To make it look really nice, just get a paper towel, wipe it off, and it looks nice and the plate looks clean then. And all I'm going to do is grate some Parmesan cheese, big wedge of it here, and you need to be using the small holes. I use the side ones here. Parmesan is quite expensive, but the thing is you don't need a lot of it because it is quite a strong cheese. And what about a little bit of garnish? There we are. Voila. So, you know, I hope you have enjoyed this session and you're going to cook this spaghetti bolognese for your family, with your family. And I have got some sheets that you can fill in with your parents and carers at the end, and we can use those back in school. And it just goes through some of the tasks, the key tasks we've done, and how you got on with them. Did you need a lot of help? Needed a little help? Or were you almost independent? I mean, you can do it yourself, so you can do these with people at home. And also, how good was it? Give it a, what do you think? Awful, 1, delicious, 10. And then there's a little box here that parents can make any comments they want about how their students got on. So that's it from me for this session. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy the further series I'm going to do on cooking with Guy. So I'd like to say to you all, thank you for joining me. Stay safe, have a peaceful time. Namaste, Guy.